have confidence that you can go into an employer and say, hey, listen, I don't understand this, whatever it is that job is,
Hmm.
but I'll start a week early without pay just to learn this system so that, I'm confident that I know how to do it.
I
I've
like that.
gone,
That's good. Yeah.
I'm extremely resourceful. I can do this. And we've had it, people say that to employers, and employers just are like mind boggled. Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, you're going to work for free to
Yeah.
understand our systems because you didn't have that qualification. Absolutely 100%.
You're listening to the 7 Echo Podcast, brought to you by 7 Eagle Group, the place where we highlight inspiring and interesting United States military veterans who have found a successful civilian career after trading in their uniforms.
Well, one of my favorite things about working in this industry is I get to come across some incredibly inspiring people who just fire me up when I hear about their stories. And one of those guys is Phil Randazzo. He's the founder of American Dream University. He's been doing it for 18 years. This is a nonprofit organization. He's based out in Vegas. Phil has been personally funding this with his own money, which is just absolutely incredible, impacting thousands of people every year. They provide it's a free military transition program that helps veterans and their spouses with their transition, helps them find that first job, or if they want to start a business, they provide support that way. They offer in-person on the bases programs as well as a huge online presence. They have tons of great content on their website and in their blogs. So Phil, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today and share your story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Jordy. Appreciate all you're doing as well.
Thank you, thank you. So, do you mind? How did you get involved in this? It was you were telling me about it the other day, and it's a cool story, and I'd love to hear that again.
Yeah, so, 9/11 happened, and obviously, Americans were just pissed off, upset. I think I didn't sleep honestly for probably 5 or 6 days with the hopes that they'd find somebody, through the
Yeah,
rubble. And I remember them finding somebody after about a handful of days. And I was just kind of angry, to be honest with you. And I looked into joining the military. I played college sports, D1 sports, and had multiple injuries. And I got medically disqualified from all of them, even being an air marshal. I figured I could sprint down the aisle of a plane, uh,
yeah,
no problem. And so it wasn't in the cards for me to join the military. So in March of 2003, when the Iraq War started, I was with my family. I was coaching some sports with some kids, and I just was watching the anti-war protesters on TV, and I was just disgusted by it. And I looked at my wife. I said, "This is crazy. There's 18, 19-year-old kids over there, and these parents are watching this on TV." And
yeah,
I said, "We're going to have a pro troops rally." My wife just kind of rolled her eyes. Oh, whatever, right? And I've been known to do some things that are a little out of the norm. And within 5 days, we had 4,500 people come to my office parking lot. It was the largest pro troops rally in the country at that time. The LA Times covered it. We were in Vegas. It was crazy. And I just really realized there was some really pent up, frustrations, and also a way to show support. So that's when I
yeah,
started the foundation, was back in March of 2003. And the first 11 years, Jordy, we really helped the wounded, their families. So spent a lot of time at Walter Reed Bethesda. We worked very closely with Wounded Warrior Project back in the day when there was, 10 guys filling backpacks
hmm,
in the mid 2000s. And then helped build a Fisher House in San Antonio, helped fund that. And then as less men and women um, were coming back wounded, I asked a general officer that I had met, and I said, "Hey, what can we do? When I go to Walter Reed now, there's three guys, um, in PT and in therapy." And he says, "For some, the transition can be difficult."
yeah,
So I kind of did some research. I looked into it, and wow, it is difficult for some, not all, but for some, right? They go from this tribe that they train, fight, live together, deploy together,
hmm,
and all of a sudden they're Geordie from Massachusetts, right? They don't have a uniform on, they're not thanked, their identity is kind of left behind. And so that's a very it's just a period filled with uncertainty. So I gathered a whole bunch of entrepreneurs. The very first event we had was back in June of 2013. We had the founder of Allegiant Airlines, a billionaire. We had Forrest Griffin, the UFC fighter. We had Ramit Sethi, Ben Huey, all these entrepreneurs. We went to the base, and of course, all these soldiers are sitting there like with their arms folded, like, all right, here's another briefing from a general officer.
Yeah.
And they were just like leaning forward and taking notes, and more people showed up at the second half of the event than the first. They had heard about it. They're all texting each other going, hey, this isn't a normal event. And so we were on to something, and all the people, it was at JBLM at the time, were like, this is fantastic. This is a totally different perspective. And, it's just like, when your dad tells you to do something, you don't want to do it, right? When the military tells you to do something, you don't want to do it. But when you bring in all these entrepreneurs, and we've been blessed to have just some incredible list of entrepreneurs. So we've done 170 plus live events. Of course, this year we've transitioned to online courses. And so we've had a lot of success with what we call a 21-day sprint course. So we really get them in and out, help them with their LinkedIn profile, show them how to navigate that thing. We're excited to learn about what you do, so we can introduce what your firm does. And I don't want to get too much into that. I think your listeners know what a great job you do. But these people, for those that don't know, I had a conversation with Gray and you, I think it was last week or the week before. Man, I won't get too much into it, but you could tell that you're into this thing just to help. Help military and their families.
We love it. We love it, like you and your team. Tell me about that 21-day course, because that sounds fascinating, and that could be valuable.
Yeah, well, that's how I got introduced to you guys. Is Gray had one of your team members had someone go through our course, and they were like, "Oh my gosh!" It was just kind of. So basically, it focuses on 3 areas. It focuses on wellness, relationships, and money, and you can kind of fit everything into those 3 pieces. And what we found is. And we put them into teams, small teams. We give them a coach, a veteran coach, and they go through this 21-day course. And, with the idea that they're going to hold each other accountable. And it really focuses on, first relationships. And that includes, how do you network in a COVID pandemic world, right? Where you can't connect. There's no job fairs. There's virtual stuff. I think everyone's tired of sitting in front of a Zoom meeting, at this point. And so how do you network? So we teach a fantastic LinkedIn strategy that really gets to the heart of that. I'll give your listeners a great thing. So if you want to connect with somebody on LinkedIn and you're looking for a job, don't hit somebody up and go, hey, I saw you were in the Marine Corps. Here's my resume. Can you pass it to HR? That's not going to work. Right. But if you were in the Marine Corps and I was in the Marine Corps, Jordy, and I'm not a veteran and you're not a veteran, and I'd say, hey, Jordy, I see you exit out of the Marine Corps in 2015. You landed at a great company. Do you have 10 minutes to share with me how you made your transition a success?
Yeah.
Just that alone, you're not going to say no to that.
Right. 100% response. Yeah.
100%. We've never had someone not get a response. And here's what happened. The 10-minute call becomes 30 minutes.
Yep.
And at the end of the call, Jordy goes, Phil, don't send your resume through the normal spot. Just give me your resume.
Yeah.
Those guys are clowns down there. They don't understand us. They can't read what our talents are and our skills are. Let me just take care of it and I'll walk it down to HR.
Yeah.
So that's just one thing we do. And so through that first week, we have them make, a list of 50 top companies that they would love to work for. We start at the number 50 and they work their way down so they get practice with the conversation.
And they get to one,
And then the other part we talk about with relationships is how do you, have, if you're married, how do you have a relationship now with your spouse, Jordy, after you've been potentially gone for a good portion of your career, right? When you and I go to business meetings, we're not gone for 9 months or 6 months or 7 months or 3 months. So how do you have that relationship? And that's where we've had some really deep, meaningful conversations, is how you have those important conversations with those people.
That's interesting. I've been in this 6 years, and that's the first time I've heard anyone address that topic. It's sort of like it's pushed under the rug. It's got to be such a big issue. So I'm so glad you're helping with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other issue, and the second week we talk about is wellness. How do we take care of ourselves, right? If you get out of the Army's not paying you to work out anymore. So how do you take care of yourself physically?
Yeah.
And I haven't met a veteran who is not in some type of pain, Jordy, whether it's physical pain, back pain, or emotional pain, they're not sleeping well.
Yeah.
And so when you're in pain, it's really difficult to make decisions. And when you're in a transition and you're in pain, you got to make some pretty big, deep, heavy decisions. And so we help them have the self-awareness to know when they're in pain. And if it's physical pain, we have some great guys and girls that help them address those, right, through stretching and some other stuff. And we sneak in a little bit of meditation here and there. We don't want this thing to be, where people think we're lighting candles and, praying to the, the gods to heal them. It's more of just to be self-aware. And sleep is a big issue, Jordy. I'm telling you, we have a whole little protocol on sleep that we share. If you don't get good quality sleep, man, that's when your body can heal.
Yeah.
And a lot of these men and women are in pain. I got a business partner who's 100% disabled. He sleeps about an hour a night, and it's the same recurring nightmare that he has.
Yeah.
That he can't shake. And he's got some other injuries too. So we really address those things. Then we talk about money. Everything from how to handle your finances before you get out of the military, how to negotiate your salary, right? In the military, you don't negotiate your salary. That's not in the cards.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just share some of those ideas. We do some role playing, but it's just been really successful. We've had over 120 people just go through it over the last few months. And again, that's how we're here, is you got some good feedback from one of your team.
And are these pre-recorded sessions, or are these all in real time, or?
They're all in real time.
Wow. And these are your team members leading these group sessions. Everyone's helping and motivating each other. That's awesome.
Yeah.
They feel like they're still part of that tribe a little bit. You got their back. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you say that, because, we had our first class September, we had 26 or 27 people. Then October comes around, we had 7 or 8 people from the September class. We're like, hey, Don, Bo, good to see you again. What's going on? He goes, this is great. I feel like I'm connected, right? Because everyone's all spread out.
Yeah.
And so a couple of our people attended, all of them except for the December class. We had, only new people in the December class. So you're right. They feel like they're a part of something.
Yeah.
And also, if we know where you want to end up, Jordy, after you get out of the military, and it might be San Diego, it might be someplace, we go, hey, we know a great guy named Gray. He's got the leads on some stuff. Let me get you connected.
Yeah.
Because that's how it works.
Yeah. So you built this network of all your past students who have gone through or been affiliated, and everyone's looking out for one another.
Exactly.
That's awesome. What do you do? I read too that you guys do a lot helping guys, men and women, start their own businesses. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So whether it's a side hustle, and you're a business owner, right? It's not for everybody.
Right.
If anything, we want to let people know what's involved, because if they think they're going to start a business to have more free time, it doesn't work that way. But we've got some amazing entrepreneurs. You know, we've had Tim Ferriss come speak, who wrote For Our Work Week for our body. You know, he shares some ideas on starting a business. We've had, so many incredible speakers. They're all on our platform. So we really have them, you know, first kind of vet their ideas. So when we were doing live workshops, Jordy, what we were doing is like mini Shark Tank events, right? So our speakers would jump on a panel. They would pre-know they had to come, and they would pitch their idea. And most of their ideas were great ideas, but they were more hobbies.
Right.
I'll give you a quick example. So there was a guy, he's like, hey, you know, I love to fish. You know, I'm out there fishing. I always run out of bait. So it'd be great if there was a mobile bait shop where people can, you know, I could get a boat. And so we're like, that's a fantastic idea. So give me an example on your lake. Like, how many fishermen are out there? Oh, there could be 15 fishermen at any given time. I'm like, okay, so how many of those 15 run out of bait? Oh, could be half. I'm like, okay, great. So how much money would you spend if you bought bait? Oh, probably $20 to get some bait. We're like, okay, so 7 people times 20, $140, and you're out on a boat for 8 hours.
Right.
We just kind of realized, and so he ended up, I don't have it with me, he ended up pivoting and doing a custom lure that got into, was it Cabela's, that big bass and pro shop?
Yeah.
He's selling it there. So He was going
Wow.
to go out and buy a boat and hire people and all this kind of stuff. And so he pivoted. And so our thing is, and you know this, right? If you and I could go back and not make three mistakes that we made in our career,
Right.
just three,
A
what
day.
would that do?
Right. Now
So
that knowledge is, oh, it's so valuable to people.
yeah, I had Tim Kennedy. I don't know if you know who Tim Kennedy
Yeah.
is, UFC fighter, Green Beret, all that kind of stuff. I interviewed him on my podcast. And I said, hey, if you could in the last 10 years just unwind three decisions you made,
Yeah.
how much time and how much money would you have?
Oh, man.
And he said, he just thought about it. He goes, well, I've never been asked. He goes, oh, easily $5 to $7 million
Wow.
just on three things. And he
Yeah.
goes, I would have a third of my life back. And
Yeah.
not just a third of my life, but all the mind energy of
Right.
making those poor decisions.
Right.
Right. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you don't sleep. So we really guide them through this process. We work with this guy named Steve Blank, who's the founder of, if you ever heard of him, the Business Model Canvas. He's taken 6 companies public in Silicon Valley. He's a veteran. He's spoken for us. So he has this great program called the Business Model Canvas, which is free. We steer people to that. We really want to get them committed. And so what we share, Jordy, is there's a difference between being interested and committed. If you're interested, you'll do whatever's convenient, right? Football playoffs, right? College, all this kind of stuff. Hey, I'm not going to work on the weekends. There's other things. So they'll do whatever's convenient. Those that are committed will put their kids to bed at 8 and they'll stay up till midnight working on their business, right? We want people to understand you need to be committed when you start a business.
Yeah. Obsessed almost. Yeah. That's great. And I noticed, you guys also help the military spouses, which is awesome. I love that you don't push them aside like a lot of groups do. They forget that, hey, these people, are as much a part of this as anyone. Talk a little bit about some of the, what got you into that? Why'd you go down that road?
Yeah. So we've always invited military spouses to our workshops, and some of our greatest success stories have been the military spouses. Yeah. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that they're transitioning every couple of years, right? From Fort Benning to Fort Hood to Fort Carson,
right,
to Fort Bragg. So they're uprooting. And for them, employers can't not hire them because they're a military spouse, because they know they're going to move. But what do? They just find a different reason not to hire them. Yeah. And so we found that if they can, we had one girl, she's amazing. She came to one of our events in 14. She had a little Etsy business doing these koozies. She's incredible. She actually worked with us for about 18 months on helping build this program. And she went from making around $400 or $500 a month to $9,000 a month in her Etsy business. Not because of us. She did all the work. I mean, she's incredible, but she was guided by some great people. It was a game changer for him. Her husband was going through some challenges, was disabled. And so spouses are near and dear to my heart, because can you imagine, Jordy, if you were gone for 6 months and you got 2 kids and your wife's taking care of the family, taking care of the finances, taking care of the house. Like, I remember going on business trips. I'd be gone for 3 or 4 days. I have 3 kids. My wife would be like, you better get home. I'm about to kill the kids.
Yeah. You can't say enough about the work they're doing for us and how much we need to support the spouses too.
Yeah.
What are some of your plans? I know you've taken the organization down this incredible path over the years. What do you foresee? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, so we're going to really build up our online platform and make it in such a way that you feel like you're still connected, right? I mean, anyone can, and we have some great online content where people can do it at their own pace. But you know what happens, right? You got 3 tabs open, all of a sudden you get an alert, and you go from the online program to all of a sudden you're watching car videos, off-roading videos on YouTube. 20 minutes later, I'm guilty of that. That's
I'm guilty of that one.
So, we really want to develop, and we're trying to raise money. And I funded 95% of this organization. We've had three big sponsors. The founder, Sam Adams, came and spoke for us. Jim Cook, he donated, big donation. Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, advisors like so. We've had some great donations, but we really want to make this where they feel like what you said, they're part of a tribe and a community, and then build that up to the point where once we start opening up our doors, we do these regional events where people will drive. We've had people drive. I remember the first probably 10 events, we had this guy, Marco, who's now on our board, who's a Marine and runs the wellness program. He came to our event in Monterey, and all of a sudden, a month later, we see him in Fort Hood. I'm like, dude, what's going on? He goes, how can you see Ryan Holiday and all these people for free? And I go, that's awesome. And all of a sudden he shows up at another event. I'm like,
You can't get like the dog you throw out the back. You can't get rid of this.
He's incredible. And so he was committed. He was committed. Another guy drove 8 hours. And I'm like, you know what? You know, you could have easily taken a flight. He goes, 8 hours. He goes, that was an audio book and 4 podcasts.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things, Jordy, is like, I didn't learn to start learning until later in life, when I had my first kid, right? Like I got my girlfriend pregnant in college, because that's just what you do when you're in college and you have no money, is you get your girlfriend pregnant. She's been my wife now for almost 30 years. But I didn't discover learning until I had to put food on the table. Yeah. And I remember I went in for a part-time job. I didn't get the job because the guy says, what do you do, to educate yourself? I said, I got my college degree. And he goes, yeah, so? And he literally threw, it was either a Jim Rome or a Zig Ziglar cassette tape at me.
Yeah.
And said, until you're ready to start learning, don't come back here. Yeah. And it was like a fire extinguisher job, making like $12 an hour.
Well, what great advice that guy gave. It's like, why couldn't we all have gotten somebody like that in our lives at that age? That's awesome.
And so part of what we're trying to do is let them know, me included, that with net time, no extra time, just driving to get on base.
Yeah.
Listen to a podcast, listen to a book,
yeah.
Download a great podcast, from you. All you gotta do is pick up one thing.
Right.
I'm not a big reader. I enjoy listening to Audible. I've listened to hundreds of books on Audible.
Yeah, like you, I can't read. Yeah.
It's incredible. And if I like a book, I'll get the book and I'll tear it up. Right. Yeah. I'll just start writing in it.
And you can put that Audible, you put it on, I put mine at 1.5 speed playback, and it's great. You get a book a week. And you do it when you're exercising or in the car or whatever, walking the dog. It's awesome. Just a great learning tool. What Phil, are some of your favorite tips for men and women about to get out of the military, recently transition? What are some of the things that they should be aware of?
Yeah. Well, first is start early, right? Yeah. We surveyed, I think we got 1,700 people to respond to a survey, which is pretty good. And the number one thing we said, if you could go back 12 months before you got out of the military, right? Monday morning quarterback, what would you do? What the number one answer was shocked us, was 27% said they would stay in the military.
Wow.
That was a number one answer. So I think the first thing would be is just reflect on, is this the right time? I know a lot of people pushed back, getting out of the military this year. And I think that was a brilliant move, just because of all the uncertainty. And so I would just really look at it and see, if that's the right move for you, is to get out. And then, number two is their finances weren't in order, right? When you have a lot of debt and you have to make a decision for a job, and all of a sudden you're chasing money to make sure that you can cover your debt, which is, of course, we all have to do. Yeah. And that job isn't really meant for you, right? Doing something that we've all done, work we haven't enjoyed doing. And if you only do that for a short period of time, that's okay. But when you get yourself in a financial situation and you have to do it long term, it wreaks havoc on you.
Right.
And then really get prepared, right? And have confidence that you can go into an employer and say, hey, listen, I don't understand this, whatever it is that job is, but I'll start a week early without pay just to learn this system, so that, I'm confident that I know how to do it.
Good. Yeah.
I'm extremely resourceful. I can do this. And we've had people say that to employers, and employers just are like mind boggled.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, you're going to work for free to understand our systems because you didn't have that qualification. Absolutely. 100%.
What a great way to get the nod over somebody else they're considering. It's like, who would you take? A guy who's coming in here, going to bust his ass for a week for free. I love that. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Did you have more? I'm
No,
sorry.
no, and the last thing too is we had this guy Grant Cardone come speak for us 4 times.
He's awesome.
He's crazy. I knew Grant. I kind of joke. I knew Grant when he was flying commercial. Now he's got a $61 million jet. Grant is very generous with his time, very generous with money. And he's like, listen, when you go into a job interview, and let's say there's 10 other people, he goes, you have to sit there and have the confidence to say, hey, listen, if you hire anyone else, you're making a mistake.
Right.
You have to say that with confidence, but not arrogance.
Right.
And so we actually have that YouTube clip up, and that's part of our teaching is you have to go in there because that hiring manager, Jordy, like what are your biggest challenges in your company? Finding the right people.
People, everybody, and I see that across the country. It's the number one, without a doubt. With the right people, you can do anything.
Exactly. And so what they don't understand, people in the military don't understand, is the bar is so low with civilians. And I say this, I've said this in front of
no, you're 100% right.
I've said this in front of 8 other people. I'm like, hey, who in this room shows up to work late? We're sitting at a military base. They look at me like, who's this old white guy? Like, no one shows up late. I'm like, when you get in this, and like who packs their desk up at 4:30 getting ready to leave for the day? No one does it. I said, you need to. I remember we had Anthony from Hotel Impossible. I don't know if you've ever seen that TV show, Hotel Impossible. And he's like 8 or 9 seasons. And he says he's never met, when he just got out of the Air Force, he shows up to a meeting 20 minutes early, full suit, everything is no one shows up. And finally someone shows up 5 minutes after the meeting. He's like, Anthony, what are you doing here so early? He goes, what do you mean? The meeting was supposed to start 5 minutes ago. And he goes, you're making us look bad. No one shows up on time. So he brought the bar up.
Yeah.
Right. Don't lower your bar, bring the bar up.
Bring yours up. Yeah.
And so you just have to, when you go into that job interview, I don't care if it's a job at Apple or a consulting job or whatever, you need to say, hey, listen, I work well with teams. I show up on time. I don't leave until the job's done. Right. I don't care about getting credit. I've worked for the biggest team on the planet, and that's the U.S. military, and no one cared about getting credit.
Right.
And if you're a hiring manager whose job is to find the right person, because it's a nightmare finding the right person, right? If you help that hiring manager make the decision easier, you're helping them out.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Oh gosh, 100%. And it's the beauty of all that advice you just gave is it requires zero skill set to just do the things that nobody else is doing. And I see it every day because we get these job assignments from companies and you read them. And the responsibilities are like ability to, like you said, ability to show up to work on time, all the stuff. I'm like, why does somebody have to put that on a job application? It's like, what's wrong with our country where that's the bar, like showing up on time, all the stuff that's ingrained in the military veteran. I mean, gosh, just don't be afraid to let the hiring authorities know. I think that's part of the challenge. That there's that culture is you don't boast. It's
right.
Team. It's over me, and but they have to have that courage or confidence, like you said, to go in there and say, hey, I'm your guy. I'll run through a wall for your company. You got to give me a chance here.
Yeah. And I'll share a video with you. You can put it in the notes or below. Please. But there's a guy, Dan Sullivan, who's a veteran. He runs Strategic Coach, and he has this video called the 4 C's, and it's, courage, confidence.
Yeah.
And it's just a fantastic short little 9-minute video. And the other thing, the other kind of last tip that I know we're bumping up on time is, when it comes to salary negotiations, right? Yeah. That's always a difficult subject. And I know a lot of people go, I have to make X amount of money.
Yeah.
Otherwise I can't take this job. And I'm like, first off, you haven't proven yourself. You're right in this position. You've proven yourself in the military. But what if you took $10,000 less and you did all the stuff we just talked about? Show up on time, stay late to figure out the systems, do all this stuff. And then at the 90-day review, go, hey, Jordy, how's my performance? Oh my gosh. Like, you've raised the bar for the whole team. I appreciate that, Jordy. You know what? I really need you to do me a favor to stay here. I really need this extra $800. What are you going to say?
Right. You never let that guy go. Never. 100 years.
Right. And so show up for 90 days, prove to the team. And a good employer is, because the cost of hiring somebody new and
Right.
training them is crazy. They're going to give you that bump.
Yep.
You
100%.
would, I would.
Right. But what you said is everything, which is it's not people, because people say this to us all day long. It's like, well, give me this. I'm like, oh, you haven't proven yourself yet. That once you prove yourself, you have the leverage. Right now, I have the leverage. But if you can just show me, show me what you got, then you got my attention.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. One of the things you said earlier about I think you said 27% of the people from that survey you did said they would have stayed in the military. I wonder if that's because they transitioned out and they just weren't prepared. It's sort of like they didn't have the American dream you'd help in them. So they got out, they were unprepared. They had the stress, the anxiety from that, as opposed to being able to know, hey, I'm getting out in 3 or 6 months or a year. Let me start at that now so I'm more ready for it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of that. And it's just a different world, right? When you get out of the military and you just work with a group of people who care about each other to the point where they would do anything for each other. And then they go out in the civilian world and they might be stuck in a cubicle, right? Who wants to sit in a cubicle? They can't see their surroundings. There's all these potential anxiety issues with that. And then people are taking credit for their work and they're like, what the F is going on, right? It's like I sit there and work and I hand it over and my boss doesn't even acknowledge me. And so I think there's some disappointment. And the other thing I would say too, because I've had probably close to 2,000 one-on-one conversations, you can call them little mini coaching calls,
Mhm.
is don't get discouraged if you go into a position and it's not the right one. That is not a failure.
Right.
That's a win. You've
Especially
just
at the beginning of your career, right?
exactly. So if it takes you one or two or three different things to find the right tribe, or I've
Right.
talked to some guys and they've done one, two, three, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to create my own tribe. And they
Yeah.
start their own business and they bring in people that they want to bring in, and it's mostly veterans,
Right.
right? I know these great brands, Black Rifle Coffee. A whole
Yeah.
bunch of guys want to make some great coffee. Grunt Style, we had the founder of Grunt Style speak a whole bunch of times. Combat Flip Flops, he was on Shark Tank. He built his own tribe. It didn't work for him on working for other people.
Right. Right. That's great. But like in your 21-day course, you mentioned one of the assignments is to go out and have those informational interviews with 50 people. I think if a vet does that at the start before they'll learn so much about what, gosh, do I really want to go work in this industry or this sort of a company? You'll get so much valuable advice. I think that can shave some of those experimental years off of the career, where you're trying to find your way. But just to lean on people, don't, and I know you mentioned too, like reach out to the other veterans. One thing I know as a civilian, I know you're the same way, is anytime in my career when a veteran reached out to me, it's like I drop everything to help. And I think so many civilians want to help and not to be afraid to ask and to ask for their advice, for their opinion.
Yeah, and people like to feel important,
Yep.
right?
100%.
Like, hey, Mr. Jordy, I was referred to you and you got this great company, this great business, and
Yeah.
hey, I'm not really worried about you placing me at this point. I just want to hear some good, solid
Right.
advice from somebody who's years ahead of me that knows where all the landmines are.
Right.
What are you going to
So,
do? You're going
so
to
easy to do. Right. And I've been working 30 years and so easy to do. And not once has anyone ever in my career said that. And I'd be so impressed. I'm like, holy crap. Oh my God. Yeah. Whatever. What do you need? Let's talk, and you set aside the time because it's not the typical, hey, can you get me a job? Hey, here's my resume. Hey, what do you have in Portland for me? Like, slow down. Let's, you got to build that relationship. And that's great advice though. Really.
yeah, yeah.
What I want to know, what do you like to do in your free time? I know you are a tireless advocate for veterans, but what do you do to unwind? Do you still playing sports and getting out there?
Yeah, I work out. I'm limited to sports. My knees are just
What
gone.
what
But
did you play in college?
I played basketball and tennis.
And tennis, nice.
Yeah, yeah. It was a weird combination, but I'm 6'4" and
Yeah.
played junior college. I wasn't smart enough to get into college. Literally, my senior year in high school, I got a 1.8.
You like me.
And so I was disqualified from playing sports. And I went to school. Uh, I didn't even know why they had classrooms. I'm like, all they need is fields and gyms, And so, but yeah, I love doing that. I've been this last handful of years, Jordy. I've been in this self discovery because
Yeah.
I was a mask wearing individual, right? I'd go to work, I'd wear a mask. I'd go home, I'd wear a mask.
Yeah.
I'd do a charity event, I'd wear a mask. And I wasn't really myself. And when you're not yourself and you have to pretend to be someone else at every single event, it's exhausting. And so I just kind of went on this quest to see, kind of who I was. And so kind of now in my spare time, really working on myself and trying to, I kind of classify myself as a recovering asshole. I don't know if I'm not allowed to say that on the thing. We can bleep that up, but I'm a recovering a-hole, right? It's like, I'd come home unpredictable. My wife and my kids would be like, how's dad going to show up?
Yeah.
Had my own business, work 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I've told the story of military bases, and I've literally had guys stand up and go, dude, you're in my kitchen. Like,
Wow.
I would just get really frustrated. And so trying to take a split second pause before I react. And again, I still react, right? And I still beat myself up for making poor decisions. And so living in a regretful past and living in a fearful future and never living in the present moment is a horrible way to live. And I lived in that way for a long time. So honestly, my spare time, besides exercise, I love exercising and spending time with family, obviously. It's really kind of digging deep into my soul and figuring this out. And I learned a lot of this from veterans, like really tough Ranger, Green Beret guys. They're like, when was the last time you did yoga? I'm like, yoga? Like, I want to bench. Like, no, you got to do the inner work. And so I don't know if I answered your question.
No, hey, good for you for figuring that stuff out. I mean, that's awesome. That's really awesome. And again, Phil, I thank you so much for sharing this great information, this great advice. I encourage anybody who is listening, please check out American Dream University. They have some incredible materials to help you. Everything is free for you, for the veteran, for the spouse. If you are in a position to donate, please, they are always looking for donations to help some of their efforts. Again, thank you so much, Phil. And I wish you guys all the best with your mission, and whatever we can do to support you, we're always here for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the website is americandream.org.
Perfect.
So that's a great way to connect with us. And appreciate you, Jordy. I look forward to connecting with you and working with you and your team.